Today is Saturday of the fourth week of Easter. To begin our reflections today, I'd like to ask you to undertake two reading assignments. The first is to read tomorrow's Gospel, the Gospel for Sunday. That begins chapter 14 of John's Gospel. Then read today's Gospel. Today's Gospel is a continuation of chapter 14. In this chapter, Jesus is talking to his disciples at the Last Supper. Judas has just left to betray him. And yet, what does he say? How does he open this chapter? He opens it by saying, "Do not let your hearts be troubled." What an extraordinary thing to say. How is that possible? Well, he goes on to say that it's possible because I, Jesus, am one with the Father. And you are one with me. And you all are one with me and with the Father, and that's your hope. And hold on to that. The second reading assignment comes from yesterday's New York Times, the Times of May 8th. Please read an op-ed piece called "The Future of Christianity is Punk." Punk! The future of Christianity is punk. A piece written by Tara Isabella Burton. She's describing a fledgling movement within Christianity that recognizes something you and I have to recognize, that there's something about more traditional religion and expressions of religion in liturgy and dogma and service and so on that's very attractive to people and very attractive in times of need and distress, like our present time. And conversely, the more progressive forms of religion, where dogma is less emphasized, liturgies can be more relaxed, less formal, have a harder time holding on to their adherents. And so the departure from liberal Catholicism, mainstream Protestantism has been very great, even as the more traditional elements of all of our Christian denominations have been able to retain many of their followers. I think the question for you and for me today is, when Jesus says what he says in our gospel, what do you believe? What do I believe? Am I willing to believe that Jesus is who he says he is? That I really do encounter him in Scripture? That you and I can encounter him in the sacraments of the church, in the functioning of the church? Do we really believe that? I think we have to be very careful that we don't decline to hold on to beliefs that seem dogmatic or follow liturgical forms that seem more formal because they somehow don't meet our sense of ourselves if we're on the more progressive side of religion. If we don't try to encounter a God who really exists, then what do we have? If we're not willing to follow where that God leads, into commandments, into particular ways of behaving, into particular belief structures, into particular modes of worship, then what do we have? The need of our age, the need of all ages, is for each of us individuals to encounter the God who really exists, to find hope there and to find strength there. Our other need, of course, is to find those same relationships with other people, with people who believe similarly, not in a rigid way, but whose beliefs form a common bond among all of us, and who are willing to step out beyond our own community in service to those most in need. So these readings come to you and come to me today, the readings from Scripture, the readings from the New York Times, to challenge us and to ask ourselves, what do we believe? What do you stand for? What do I stand for? How have you or I encountered God today? And how does that encounter with God, our encounter with one another, give us hope for the future so we can live hopefully amidst all of the difficulties of our present age? Jesus invites you and me into this extraordinary relationship. Let's say yes to him today.